Hello, friends. My name is Steve, and we are here today to discuss the Trials of Ashmount. It was by our friend John Palladino. So we're going to grill him with a bunch of questions and ask him why he did the awful things he did in this book. So we'll
Fair
go
enough.
around the room. Yeah, John, do you want to give us an introduction? Start us off.
I'm John Palladino, and I wrote the book we're talking about. That's about it. Podcaster, extraordinaire, awesome person. I'm just kidding. I don't know what to say. That we're talking about the book, and that's the only claim to fame I have. So,
Oh dear.
And Layla, we're off to a good start.
I'm Layla Goshi, an English professor, and recently launched a web magazine.
Nice. How's that going?
It's going well. Behind the scenes I've got several things lined up that over the holidays I hope to wrap up and start getting things launched. So
Nice.
yeah, it's going
Awesome.
well though.
We'll leave all those links down below for everyone to find. And Chris?
Yeah, my name's Chris Mullen. I think I'm going to start saying I'm a recovering YouTuber. Check today. It's been 45 days since my last video. So, so I'll have to do something about that possibly. But occasionally you can find me hanging out here in Steve's channel as well because he's very gracious to let me on. And I see you was that the hardcover you had, John? You were flashing?
oh yeah,
Oh,
this is the hardcover I just got. Actually, I don't know if you guys saw it, but without the jacket,
Oh,
I got it without the
nice.
art, which is
sweet mother.
yeah, pretty
nice.
pretty cool. I think. I just got that. Funny story. It's not a funny story. It's a piss me off story. I ordered this proof copy October, the same day I bought Steve's copy of the paperback. I ordered the proof copy of this. I think it was October 12th. It was either 12th, 13th, or 14th. I can't remember the exact day, but it was one of those 3 days. And I never got the proof copy. It's really annoying. Until December 7th, I think, is when I got it, which is a crazy time. I had to go back and forth with the Ingram Spark customer support, and I finally got it almost 2 months later. And guess what? The hardcover released on December 1st.
Yeah, I think I seen your tweet about that. Yeah.
So I didn't actually get a chance to look it over. I was going to move the release date, but when I went to do that, I noticed that Amazon, I'm assuming it was Amazon, had placed an order, so they already had 20 copies or something in stock, and I was like, well, fuck. It's already ruined, so I'll just wait and not worry about the release date because they're going to sell those first anyway.
Yeah.
So
all things being well. So is it like one of those situations where you feel like a 20% more real author now that you've got this proper sexy hardcover?
Oh, I don't know if that changed much. You know what? I'm really waiting on the broken binding.
Right.
That's when I'll feel like a real author. I'll be like, oh man, I actually succeeded. Who knows? Maybe one day, right? That'd be so cool.
For sure.
Nice. And John is here. Here I come up in the chat with my BS. And God gave me another day to live, and I'm here to make it everyone's problem. You'll fit right in, John. So John, did you want to? What's for people who haven't read the book yet? We'll give them a quick non-spoiler section before we get into the nitty-gritty. But what's the elevator pitch for the Trials of Ashmount?
Well, I call it grimdark fantasy. Some people disagree, but I call it basically like Joe Abercrombie meets a hard magic system, kind of in the vein of Brandon Sanderson. I've heard some people say. I never made that connection myself until someone said it, and then I was like, well, yeah, I guess it kind of is in the hard, very hard magic sense way. I would never compare myself to either of those authors other than to give you the basic pitch. Mainly inspired by Abercrombie and George R.R. Martin, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
So if you like them, maybe. I don't know. I'm very confident.
You're never, I've never seen you at a loss for words until we're talking about your book.
It is so true. Yeah, it's so true. You talk about my book, I don't know. It's some shit that you can read. I mean, I could go more in depth. I wasn't sure if you wanted the very broad elevator pitch or if you wanted a little bit about the book.
Yeah, tell us whatever you want.
All right, there's 5 POVs, and the book is called The Trials of Ashmount. Ashmount is referring to a magical university. Probably a lot of people automatically just think Hogwarts, which don't think that. It's not like Hogwarts. I will say that Hogwarts was like kind of the immediate inspiration for that, but don't read the book thinking you're going to compare it to that at all. Basically, one of the main characters, their storyline is that they kind of get this opportunity to go to the school and learn. And I don't want to say too much more than that about that character because I feel like it could quickly delve into spoiler territory. But so there's the student who is going to the university, and then you have a nobleman who's trying to pull off a scheme to get rich and gets betrayed, and then you have the nomadic warrior who has some introverted qualities. Some people have actually said that they think he's autistic. I didn't write him with the intention to represent autism, but I think naturally it kind of came out that way for some people anyway.
That's interesting.
I didn't plan it, but I can definitely see why. I wanted to put in like a bunch of quirks and stuff and some of them are actually directly from my childhood, being like a super introverted kid. And so it kind of evolved from there. And I think that's why people think he's autistic, but that wasn't the plan. And he kind of develops this other magic system, which is not related to the main magic system, and that's kind of his story. And then who am I missing?
Sarah.
Yep, Sarah is the she's a gerfalcon raiser. She raises birds, and basically her homeland is invaded, and then it's kind of her journey from there. And I know there's a 5th person. Oh, Demery. How could I forget Demery? And then there's a criminal who is one of the mages who used to go to the school. So he's actually a criminal that's fleeing from the crimes that he's alleged to have committed. I guess whether or not he committed crimes, I guess would be a perspective thing. You know, certainly he didn't do a lot of good things, but there may or may not be reasons for, things he does. So I think that covers all 5 of the POVs.
So I think we can probably get into the spoilers. So anyone who hasn't read the book yet, you've been warned. We're going to get into the book, and this book starts off kind of letting you right away what kind of ride you're in for. Pretty within the first 10 pages or so. So was that an intentional choice for you?
I'll be honest, I did not intentionally do anything really. I just sat down and started writing. And I always like a good prologue that kind of like starts somewhere, like boom, you're in like some action of some sort, something interesting is happening. So that's kind of why I started. And actually, it's funny, the character that was the POV of the prologue originally was going to be one of my main characters.
Yeah, it reads like that. It reads as if you're setting that up for the first couple of pages for sure.
Yeah, and then I got to the end of the chapter and my mind changed. Originally the stuttering guy, Demery, who isn't named in that chapter, was going to be the major antagonist. By the time I finished that chapter, I had been writing out the stutter as I went, as you guys have seen in the book. And I got to the end of that chapter, and it dawned on me. I was like, "Oh my god, what if I made him one of the major POV characters? That would be wild." And so I did that. He originally wasn't going to be a POV character, so
Such a fascinating character, John Demery.
oh,
Like-
Demery.
Yeah.
Oh man, you start him off. He's completely the villain of the piece, and then sort of by the end of it, is the hero.
Mm.
I guess it depends on what you how
Yeah.
you look at it. I did want to kind of evolve his character so that you really hate him in the beginning.
Yeah.
But I really wanted it to like kind of be flipped up on its head, and then you're like, oh, actually, man, he does some really fucked up shit. But you kind of see why. Like,
Yeah.
so that was kind of I really, in the first book, I didn't really plan anything. Just by the way, it kind of naturally evolved the way it did. Full pants novel. I didn't plan anything. I got 50% of the way through, and then the ending. What, I don't know that we want to touch on that yet, but the big ending chapter where like the big shocker happens, that was planned.
Mhm.
From the middle of the book, but everything else was kind of just written. And actually, Villic, the nomadic warrior, originally wasn't a main character. He was
Mhm.
just 3 short interlude chapters, but he got expanded because of plans for book 2. When I had like 3 early readers and my editor read it, and they were like, "Why is Villic in 3 chapters? It seems really pointless." And I was like, "Well, he's gonna be a point of view character in book 2." And they
Mhm.
were like, "Well, he's so cool and fascinating." Because I think the first interlude chapter was when speakers showed up.
Mhm.
The second interlude chapter was kind of a battle that showed the magic system.
Okay.
And then the third chapter was when they invaded Remeria and they got to like the city, the capital. And people are like, "Well, we like this guy so much just from the small amount of interactions," because people apparently really like the relationship between Villic and Speaker.
Mhm.
And so they were like, "I really want to see more of that." And my editor was like, "You really should make him a full point of view if he's going to be a major character in book 2, because he has so much that you could show here." And I was like, "Okay, fine." So I expanded it, and seems like, I mean, not everyone, but a lot of people, it's like one of their favorite characters now. So I was pretty happy about that.
Yeah, and I wanted to say I think it makes a character interesting. You know, when I mean when say Demery starts out the way he does, and we do become sympathetic to him, and I don't know, I was rooting for him, and I actually thought that let me remember his name, Keldon. I thought Keldon was going to come along and be like his biggest supporter and his inside voice at the university, and we saw how that went, and but I loved that. I mean, that scene. I don't know. Can we talk about what
Yeah.
happens to Keldon? I guess. Well, Keldon unexpectedly dies. Maybe I'll just say that so we don't spoil everything. But I just loved it because it it's like when we were talking to Steve Erickson recently, and you know, characters die in the book, and sometimes you know things happen, you know, and that's, I mean, that's like a very simple way of saying it. Sometimes things happen, things don't turn out the way that we wish they would in real life or in fantasy, and so it took me a minute, but I was like, wow, you know, that's really funny. Yeah, so I even wrote in my Goodreads review, I said I'm both horrified and amused in a way at the same time. So
Yeah, I was actually stunned. The reception to that part. I've got so many people who are like, I can't believe you did that, and I'm actually like really upset because I like that character so much. And I was like, really? You liked Keldon? I hated Keldon. I genuinely hated writing Keldon, and it was because the idea of the book was spawned from Keldon. I kind of had the storyline in my head very easily. He gets this opportunity to go to the school. He's going to go to this magic school. He's going to learn about the magic. And that was basically what I knew. He had to go through the trials. And so a good 70% of his story I already knew ahead. And I hate plotting. I hate writing. Like I hate knowing what I'm writing. And so every time I got back to his point of view, I was like, I had the most massive writer's block. I was like, I need to do another trial. I don't care about this shit. I already know what's going to happen. I don't want to do this. And so every time I got to Keldon, I like slowed down my writing so much, and it was such a struggle. And about 65-70% of the way through the first draft, I decided, fuck, he's dead. I can't do this again in book 2. So he dies. Originally, the plan was going to be somewhat like maybe Demry and Keldon will hook up or something. I didn't really know what I was going to do with Keldon until I decided to kill him. But I do really like that he died, because if Keldon didn't die, I think I was going to kill somebody else. And if I had done that, I think I would be really regretful. So
Yeah.
yeah, we have Keldon dead, and in book 2 we have a new POV to replace him.
I could see though how people would become invested in him. I mean, I was, because he's overcoming every trial, and that's like a very I think maybe not easy to write, but in terms of engaging a reader, you want to see, is he going to dodge the trial this time? Is he going to make it? And I really thought he and the giant were going to, do great things as well. Kokar, that's
I
and that was
pronounced it
another great.
Kohikar, but yeah, it's whatever.
that was another great death, actually, because how Kokar goes out. So yeah, so with all of that, I thought, okay, he's going to be the one that helps Dimry make everything right, So yeah. Anyway, overall, great stuff.
I definitely give you way too much credit here, John. Then, given that you said you didn't plan this out, because to me, right?
Well, I did go back and put in like foreshadowing and stuff after the fact. So
yeah,
that it does look like I planned more than I actually did, I think, because of that. My editor was spectacular at pointing that out. She was like, you should go back, put foreshadowing here, 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 and here. And so that's why I think it looks more like I planned all of this out, because I went back and added details.
Yeah, okay. Because to me, Keldon is the prototypical fantasy hero journey. He is the young boy. He's finding his new place. He actually has good qualities. He goes in back and helps the person. He has all the things. He's got personal growth. But like I said, Demry, as the book goes on, basically is Keldon at a certain point. And by the time the two of them reach the end of the book, there's no need for both of them. And actually, Keldon has done his... he's told the story of Demry at a certain point. And at that point, it was like when he died, I went, that makes sense, because the two of them are the same person, especially now that Demry's been reborn.
Yeah, so the point... So some people have said, I don't know why you add Keldon in here if he's just going to die. It feels like a pointless story. But I wanted to show, like, the trials, like, firsthand. And I didn't want to do a ton of flashbacking either. Because I'm not a flashback fan, although I actually have a strict rule, which is 0 flashbacks for my writing. Ironically enough, I have one in this book.
Yep.
A lot of people say it's the best chapter in the book. That's depends on who you are, I guess, and what you like. But I have gotten that feedback by quite a few people that it was the best chapter in the book. I guess it depends on how much you like Demry, I guess. And then in book 2, there's another flashback. I'm just not a flashback type person normally, but
Yeah.
Our friend Aaron had a comment. Keldon was so irritating, then he wasn't, then he was. Glad he didn't make it, to be honest.
So a fun fact about Keldon is I wrote the whole first draft, and even before I got it edited, I was doing a reread, and I was like, okay, so Demry has his personality, and Edelbrock has his personality, and Philic clearly has a good personality. You might not like it, but he has a personality. And then Sarah, I go back and forth on how much I like that personality. I think I maybe did better in book 2. But Keldon, I was like, oh my god, this is the most bland motherfucker I've ever seen. So I went back and added in, I was like, how can I spice him up and make him interesting? So I went back and I was like, I don't know how to change him. He's so boring. What if I just put in thoughts that I would actually have? Make him super secretly kind of like arrogant. I mean, I'm not an arrogant person, but I have a lot of like condescending and awful thoughts sometimes. So I was like, well, if I was Keldon, what would I think in this situation maybe? And so I went back and I just kind of, and I obviously made it a bit extreme. Like, I'm not that bad. So I went back and kind of changed that, made him a bit more arrogant, a little more kind of a douche. And but you're right. The idea is that he also is kind of a good person because he does stop to help that girl on the trials. He does have, at the end of the day, he does have like good intentions, aside from wanting to be powerful.
Yeah.
I thought that was another great situation too, where he did help the girl and then ended up regretting it because of her inability to, either her behavior, her inability to handle stress or whatever was going on with her. But I thought that detail, just it added to the just the feel of the desperation of what was going on the trail, as they were going up the hill. So, yeah, I thought that was great.
Oh, go ahead, Layla.
No, that's all right.
Oh, no, Aaron had a comment. Oh, interesting. That explains the reading about the past of Ashmount. I literally wondered why you use that technique rather than flashbacks.
I'm just not a big flashback person in general, and I thought it would be better if we had someone that went through it firsthand so that we didn't have to see so many flashbacks. Because originally Demry wasn't going to be in the book as a POV, and then he was. And when I kind of started writing that, it was like, well, these guys kind of have the same journey, but this is after the journey, and then this is the journey, and then he'll die because what am I going to do with him after? I mean, originally he was actually not going to. He was going to get what he wanted originally and be like a powerful, like magic user. Enforcer, yeah. I was going to say that, and then I was like, no one's going to know what I'm talking about. And then I realized the only people that are here are going to know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he was going to be an enforcer. And then I was like, that seems too cliche. I feel like, I want this, and then I get this. So let's make him like the one thing he obviously wouldn't want to be, which is a glyphist. And so I thought that was kind of fun. Got to explore a little bit about like how they would teach them how to. That was a struggle. I was like, okay, now he's in school. What the fuck is he supposed to learn?
I liked that detail though, that he became a glyphist, or they said that they saw that in him, because I really saw it as how he had the behaviors he had exhibited on the trail, like helping the girl and turning the giant into an ally and that kind of thing. I saw that as them seeing him as a threat, because he's obviously smarter than almost everybody else, because he made it, or at least maybe 38 people are smarter than him because they got there to the top for him. But he exhibited certain behaviors, and so that kind of added to me just the kind of the sinister feel of what was going on at the university. And something else I was going to say, my mind just leapt to a point about a different character that, we were talking about before, just in how the characters have, not so great traits. And I spent a little time thinking about Sarah Dahl. I'm looking to remember her full name.
Winlock.
Yes, Whitlock. Yes, and so the magic system, you drain yourself when you use it. It's not limitless.
Right.
It's not unlimited. So when the healer gave up her life for her and her father, I kind of thought it really said something. We're seeing her as a hero, but then she's thankful to the healer, but she's like, hey, it was her choice. I just kind of read that in kind of a, it made me think of her in a more complex way, I guess. I'm still rooting for her, but wait a minute,
Yeah.
Why should she? Why does she and her father deserve to live in her mind? Is what I was thinking, and so yeah.
Yeah, she's at her core a very selfish character. At the end of the day, she's very much about doing things for her and to hell with everybody else. Even in terms of her father, who is paraplegic at the time, and it's like, really is at the end of life, but actually that doesn't matter. Does Sarah at all? It's no, I'm just going to look after him. As long as we're okay, doesn't matter about anybody. Whether that's right or wrong, like whatever. But
Well, I guess you could look at it with hindsight and say that she made the right call.
Well, and I guess in terms of characterization, what I'm saying is I like that because even I keep thinking Kendall Keldon. Even Keldon, he had his selfish moments, and now Sarah Dahl has her selfish moments. So I think that's important to have in the characters so we can see them as, making, different decisions at different times. Like George R. Martin says, you can be, you can make a great decision one day and an evil decision another day. Paraphrasing him.
Yeah, that's kind of how it's kind of the philosophy I take with almost every character I write. Is generally people are not always going to do bad things. Generally, people are not always going to do good things. And good and bad is always subjective based on the event and the perspective and the morality. So, it's situational, and that's why I gravitate to grimdark. It's that philosophy right there.
Yeah.
I loved Edelbrock's plan. Like, he thought it was like this foolproof master plan. Like, this, what can go wrong,
Yeah, it was a good plan. It's just,
I have to say, I laughed nearly the whole way through the second half of that chapter. It was so comically funny. Even the choice of language of how he was describing the horrible deeds that he was having to do to get there. I actually put up my notes. Oh my God, Jesus, John.
he's a fun character. I'm a big Edelbrock fan.
Yeah.
He is great. Poor Gordy.
Yes.
Brilliant.
Touching on that, I haven't really talked about. I'm really glad we're doing the spoiler discussion because I haven't really talked a lot of like the actual book or spoilers with people all that much. It's surprising to me how many people have DNF'd on that scene because I really didn't think it was all that like graphic. But at least I wrote it and I didn't think it was all that graphic, I guess. Some people probably obviously disagree, but I thought it was a fun scene to write. That was my most fun scene I wrote in the book. Was actually that chapter. It was my favorite moment, and I hear a lot of people like stop reading because of it. I'm like, oh man, really? That was like the best part.
But that was probably a good idea in hindsight because, like, I thought it was very darkly comic. Just the end of that kid's life, again, without being laugh out loud hilarious, I kind of went, "That's quite funny." Just how that was done. Just kind of throw him down, splat. There you go. Move on.
Well, I didn't want to like linger and like describe it in too much
Yeah.
graphic detail. I thought that would be like almost traumatizing. So I was like, okay, we'll just move on from this with because I don't necessarily need to be like Michael Fletcher when it comes to like how dark the book is. It's, like I wasn't trying to be super grim dark. But it's funny because the people who can't handle a death of a child DNF there, and I thought it was written rather tastefully in terms of like not lingering on like gory details, but that didn't turn out that way. And then the people who liked the grimdark stuff, it's like, man, I really wish that you had gone like a lot harder in some of these sections. And I'm like, oh shit, maybe I should have just like lingered. I don't know.
Though I do know folks that have told me they stopped reading George R.R. Martin when Ned was killed, and that surprised me. But I think there are folks who come in wanting to read a story where the characters are consistent, but you don't find that in grimdark always. Or if you do, a lot of horrible things happen to that character, and you just have to know that that's what you're reading. You're reading, a gritty story. So I kind of see DNF as just do a quick side trip, is more a case of maybe not really. It's not the fault of the author. It's you really need to examine the books you want to read before you read them, and then to go and announce that you DNF something to me is like, well, that's telling me you made the wrong choice in the book you picked up because, if something is clearly horror and you don't like horror, then don't pick up the book. It's not the author's fault, because there's anyway.
Right. I think the only time it would be the author's fault is if they maybe marketed it like incorrectly. Like I call my book grimdark and specifically want people to know, like, don't get into this if you're like Wheel of Time and that's it, right? Like,
yeah, but something like what happened to Gordy. I mean, we sympathize, and at the same time, it shows us who Edelbrock is dealing with. And then we come to find out he really wanted to be one of them, which makes it even more,
right?
Amusing and horrifying at the same time.
But funny, I think it says most about his wife as a character, as a not sympathetic character, even so much more than Skade or Edelbrock, to be perfectly honest. It's very much the way that she casts her own child aside is like, okay, well, there's a real villain in some ways.
Jaylena, I've gotten some reviews that are like, this doesn't make sense, and I'm like, but not every single parent out there. This is a true hard fact. Not every single parent out there loves their children, and this is one of those cases where she hates him so much, she doesn't want a reminder of him around, and so when that plan is like. I mean, this is all behind the scenes stuff, but like when that plan comes to head, it's like, yeah, kill the kid. Like I just want to move on. I want him gone. I don't want to have to raise his kid. I want to be with you, and like that's the plan, And
she's moving on to a new stage of her life, and she doesn't want any ties to behind. She's moving into regality, or what other way you want to put it,
Right, and like I don't know who wants to be raising a gladiator's baby. How gross.
Aaron commented, you literally warn everyone by calling you started off with people who may die. I mean,
That's
it's
true.
you kind of let everyone know anything's on the table.
It's true. The character roster is that actually started as a joke to my editor. I didn't know what to label it, and I didn't want to just cast of characters. So I just wrote people who may die, and it was a joke. And I would have published that. I did publish that, but at the time I was thinking I would publish this. It'd be funny, but no way is anyone going to let me. Like, right? I expected the first note from the editor to be like, change this. What is this?
Pretty good.
This is funny, but this is what it's going to be. The editor emailed me back. She didn't even wait until the cop to send it back. She first thing was, "Oh my god, this is hilarious. You got to keep it." I was like, "Oh, okay." I didn't realize it was going to be like that big of a. And it's so funny. So many people that look at it, they just take a look because they see my book somewhere, and they see that, and as soon as they see that, I bought your book because this is great already, and I actually sent a copy to Patrick from I don't know why I can't remember his channel name. I think it's just
Patrick
his name,
Leo.
right?
Patrick Leo,
Leo.
yeah.
So, and I'm subscribed and I watch him all the time. Sorry, Patrick. But I sent him a copy and he messaged me and was like, "Oh my god, between your cover art and the people who may die, I'm gonna actually read this someday." And I'm like, "Oh my god, that's awesome," because I didn't expect that.
It's the first link that you have that this is definitely a you book, John. I mean, the people here on this this podcast know you a bit, so it was very much easier for probably us to see. But I think the book is very representative of your humor and you as a person on a page, and I think that's one of my favorite things about it. To be perfectly honest, that there is such a strong identity there.
Yeah, I tried to inject this humor is so subjective, obviously, but I really wanted. I would be writing, and I just have this really maybe off color comment or some funny jest or something, and I want to put it in the narrative. And at first I didn't do that. I was like, I can't do. And then I was like, wait a minute, that just livens the characters up so much more. I'll do that.
Sure.
And I think that if you like that kind of like humor, like I do anyway, I think I'm great. I just thought it'd be fun, and obviously it doesn't land for everyone. Actually, I guess I haven't heard anyone mention that it didn't land for them, but I'm sure it doesn't for some people, and that's fine. It is what it is. But I thought it just kind of made the narrative more fun than I don't know. Sometimes just having little quips and stuff here and there.
Yeah, I think humor is a lot about timing, and I like that there was humor, but there were some moments that there wasn't humor. So it wasn't it wasn't there all the time. It was there, but it wasn't there constantly. So it was nice to have those serious moments be serious and give us a little bit of a break from that.
Yeah, I think it's very important if you're going to. Well, I guess there's exceptions. If you're writing an actual comedy, then make jokes everywhere. But I really specifically in serious moments that were affecting the point of view character. If it was a serious moment that was affecting someone else, but the person that is the POV of and they thought it was funny, that's one thing. But if it was affecting some, I really wanted that to be serious, and so I tried to make it serious because I think it's important that you don't. It's not realistic to make a joke when your baby was just flung off a balcony. So that didn't happen.
Speaking of humor, I thought it wasn't quite banter, but the exchange between Villic and the speaker had those moments, and I can see that going further. I don't know where you're going with that, but could have potential.
Yeah, the dynamic between speaker and Villic is one of my favorite things to write because it's all in your head, so you can have a lot of different dialogue at really weird times. I mean, honestly, if there was going to be humor in a serious time, I could definitely see it being there with speaker saying something, just because that would he's not actually the person. He's just watching through Villic, so it's like kind of different. It's not affecting him. He doesn't have that, same stake in things that Villic would have. And then, if Villic dies, it's not really a big deal for Speaker, but
Mhm.
I also don't think that Speaker would make light of a lot of the serious situations, but I could see it happening here and there.
Yeah. Something else about that, I thought, in terms of that's a different type of magic, from what I understand.
Yes.
So it would be unlimited, or it could be unlimited if Villic, if Speaker helps protect Villic, or, versus the magic system of the trace, if I'm understanding right.
Yeah, so the
Yeah.
main magic system is very limited. It's tied to your life. Villic's magic is unlimited, I guess you could say. There's the only requirement is you have to have like a weapon to funnel it through. And there are like limitations. You can't just like change your sword into fire and then you can start calling down fireballs or something crazy like that. It's very restrained in certain ways. You see a lot more of that type of magic in book 2, by the way.
I could see how that would be really cool, that the professors or whoever of the university, the leaders, the arch magicus, is that right? Arch magicus.
Yep.
He there's no way they could control Speaker. So it'd be a very interesting dynamic if they came up against each other, or one was trying to control the other. So lots of potential there.
Yeah, that. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Go ahead. I was, just hoping they'd clash in this book.
Yes. So there will definitely be. I'm not trying to give anything away. There will
Yeah.
be some clashing, but the organization. This is not really a spoiler and shouldn't necessarily be much of a surprise. Kind of doesn't exist anymore. So there isn't like the
True.
political clashing, that you might be hoping for, because all of those people are gone. Whether or not somewhere in the future that happens, I unfortunately don't think so, based on where I know I'm going. But it would be a really cool dynamic. It would be something really fun to explore. Unfortunately, I don't think it'll happen in this series, but
Okay.
perhaps food for the future on something. I don't know. I mean, I have this series planned, and I have 2 standalone novels that are going to bridge the gap between this series and a second series. But that series also won't have. That series is a wild, just whole
Well, it's
other idea.
2024 at least. Yeah, I hear you.
Well, and that's helpful to me too, because I wasn't sure if there would be some survivors, if somebody,
Well, there is one. Durham, I think, has survived. And whether the stores of magic or whatever that they've had, whether they survive, maybe another thing as well. But go back just to I call them Village, by the way, rather than Villic. But either way, to me,
whatever you want to call any of the characters, I don't care. I have my pronunciation that I intended for me, but I'm very much as long as the names are pronounceable and they work for you, that's what you should call them. It doesn't offend me. Some people get offended. I don't. I think as long as you can pronounce them in a way that works, I think that's great, because I really hate names that you look at and you're like, what?
So how are you pronouncing Villic? How are you pronouncing it?
I say Villic, and he says, was it Village?
I said Village, yeah. So as I'm very like a Croatian, Eastern European pronunciation of it, but whichever. To me, it's interesting that people think he's autistic, because to me, he was very like Drax out of Guardians of the Galaxy, Dave Bautista's character. Especially the way that he talked to the speaker out loud and stuff. That was very, very reminiscent of that. And the thing that sprung to my mind, and this could have been completely unintentional, but the speaker and Villech's relationship was one between a believer and an atheist.
Yes. I guess I didn't make the connection in the real world, like atheist and believer.
Yeah.
But it is very much a, I am full faith and I am like full science type relationship. Science would be the wrong word because in this it's full magic. But one of the I'll spoil the idea real quick. But one of the standalone novel ideas that's going to bridge the gap between the two series is going to be called Speaker. It's actually going to go back in time. It's going to start way back when Speaker was actually a person. It's going to show kind of how the magic. I don't know exactly how this is going to work. It's several books away, but it's going to kind of show the development of the magic. I don't know if I'm going to get into super big details. He's going to die, and then it's going to be like sections of each person he kind of is in, and it's showing the world change as he goes until you catch up to where the next series starts. And then that series will start right after that standalone book.
That's cool.
Pretty cool idea, if I do say so myself.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. Yeah.
So I have a question. When did, just to back up a bit, when did you first start? When did you first start thinking about this world? When did the idea first come to you? Is it something you'd been thinking about for a while?
Kind of a two-faceted question. The whole world, this particular book, the characters, all of that started in 2020 after I quit my job during COVID. So I started writing in the spring of 2020. However, the magic system, the basic idea for the magic system, I actually have had in my head since I was in high school. Not fleshed out in the way that it is in the book, but just the idea that magic was tied to your life, and so every time you did something, it like burned it away. You aged in like real time. That I came up with when I was in high school, and I kind of wrote as I went through my years, like different iterations of it, and so I kind of evolved it over time. There was never actually 5 branches until I wrote the Trials of Ashmount. Originally, people could do all of it.
I like the magic system. Makes me feel claustrophobic in a good way, if that makes sense. You know, I get worried when people start using the magic in the book. You know, I'm like, hold on a minute. So I think that came across really well.
Awesome, glad to hear it. I wanted, I think that for a grimdark novel, I really wanted there to be like a strong consequence. I didn't want it to just be like there's magic, you know.
Yeah,
so,
I think that works really well. Yeah.
For me, the most shocking part of the book was actually the death of Sangoa. Isn't Sangoa?
Oh, yes, I was gonna bring her up when we were talking about Keldon earlier. I've heard that by quite a few people. Some people thought there was going to be a romance there. And some people just did not see that coming. And it wasn't planned, which is probably why it seems really sudden. But in the moment, I was like, ooh, I could really demonstrate how like collectors work or whatever. Like, and so that would be cool. But did I plan for her to be alive longer? Yes. But I did change that. I think really part of her death was also the whole like writer's block with Keldon thing. I was like, man, I need to spice something up here. I'm just getting so bored. And so I did that. Yeah. I recognize that reading the sections might not be as boring as like writing them was, but man, I really struggled with his sections just in general. It was like, oh, another trial. Oh my god, we're just going up a mountain. This is so boring. Now nothing's happening. What am I gonna do? It was bad. It was bad. I hated it all. I just couldn't stand the whole trials part. Once I got past, like, there was a moment where I think it's the Archmagicus. Sorry, I know I don't know my book like crazy well. I know I don't read it. As soon as I click published, I kind of just erased it from my mind. But I think it's the Archmagicus who's giving them the speech before the trials start, and it's basically like, okay, now they started, and everyone leaves and starts to go up the volcano there, and the trial started, and literally at that moment I was like, fuck, now what do I do? And every chapter after that was mostly a struggle until the trials ended, and then I had to figure out how to like make it seem like he was learning stuff, and that was a struggle. And then I finally got to the last couple chapters, and I was like, yes, this is good stuff.
But you
Then
know,
it was dead.
I thought the trail was really suspenseful. I mean, it's a good part of the book.
That's awesome to hear, because I was really worried because it's the name of the book, and I was like, oh man, the name of the book is not good because it's just not like that part's boring, you know. I know that it's just because I worked like on it, so it's probably different.
No, it came across much different than you're imagining it, I think,
That's awesome.
or your experience. You know,
Right.
well, it was a trial. You were living through that trial with your character, so.
Yeah. Yeah, because there are events, aren't there? So every time you came around and there was an event happening in the book, you kind of re-engage your brain to say something's about to happen. You know, so regardless of whether nothing happens or minor things happen, you kind of have the idea of you're on the journey. And it's nice that the name of the book is also the metaphor for you writing it.
It's fair.
That's cool.
That's great.
And I kept hearing about this point where everyone would DNF it, and I was trying to predict it. I think I took a picture of the page, but I was convinced it was when Sarah was fed. Was it her mom and her brother?
Yeah, her mom
It was like a South Park moment, like when Cartman makes the chili.
I'm surprised I haven't heard more on this. I wonder if it's just because it was like a short moment in the book, and so it's kind of like you read it, you finish it, and you know there's a little bit of references to it here and there, but not it's like I don't know. I was stunned between the killing of the birds and then the like cannibalism, the accidental cannibalism. I really thought that more people would maybe say something about that, and honestly, I don't hear anything about it, and I'm shocked because I thought that would have been like hot topics, especially the killing of the animals. No one seems to care. It's very interesting to me.
It definitely was one of those bits that I highlighted and went, oh, Jesus. Was there any need? I mean, mainly because you knew it really probably didn't have any significance to the rest of the story. It was just there because it's kind of darkly comic, you know, in some weird way.
Solely there to show you who Adavir really is.
Yeah.
Blago Adavir. He is a disgusting asshole. Just the worst. He's supposed to be like maybe like the worst villain, I guess, like the most villainous character, I guess. Was it a little darkly comical? Probably. But to be fair, I think there's plenty of instances of fucked up shit like that in history too, of people doing shit like that. So I was like, you know, that's why I kind of did that. I was like, whatever. He did some horrible things, and that's what happens. But I think people. Well, I'm not gonna say that. That would be a spoiler for book 2.
We got close to getting a spoiler.
Yeah, you got close. Let's just say things happen in book 2 that are interesting. I really want to give a hint, but I don't want to ruin it, so I won't.
Yeah, my favorite or not favorite line was Edelbrock cleared his throat again. There was still some trig in it.
Okay, so that line
Oh
is
man.
responsible for
Oh.
someone reviewing the book and saying it had a lot of nasty sex in it. And I'm like, there is no sex in this book at all. Other than the reference to that. Which I thought was one of the I love that line. I wrote that. It was one of the first lines I wrote in his because it was in the first couple paragraphs of Edelbrock's first chapter. And I was like, oh, this is good. This will kind of set some of the tone for like my type of writing. And I thought it was funny, but
It was.
Another entity I liked was the Velvet Mother. I like this concept of the this invisible figure. Except I'm not sure if I'm sorry, now I'm forgetting his name. Edelbrock's nemesis. Hi.
Scared.
Skade Hacklin.
Oh, Skade. Yeah, Skade. Yeah. I'm not. I wonder, did he know all along who the Velvet Mother was, or or not? But I like the idea that there is like this invisible entity, and even those fighting for the mother never saw her or him. Turned out to be her, and that ultimately it was connected to, the prologue that we read. Yeah.
With the Cabello family.
Yeah, and I wonder about Chaos now. I kind of sensed some regret after he realized what he had really given up. I'm not sure if you intended that, but I read that after he had, killed the mother and then given it all up and gone on the run with Dimry, it seemed like he had some regret for the money, not for the family. So, did I read that right, or
Sorry, I had to fix something. The regret was over.
over giving up the money?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was solely the for Caius. It was like finally a time to like reclaim some like significant status, basically.
Right.
And he had it, and then it was like I have to give it up, and obviously he does it without much of like a fight, because
Yeah.
really the loyalty is more to like Demry than himself, I think.
Yeah.
And so it was more like, okay, just go back to how things were really. And really, I wrote a short story actually that's about Caius when he's a kid,
Mhm.
and that kind of goes into some of the background stuff more. But he kind of has this tension with his family. He ends up leaving, which I think
Mhm.
it says in the book, but I can't remember exactly what is in there and what isn't, and what's in book 2 and what's in the short story. But anyway, he leaves the family. He takes on this new name, and in the flashback, he stumbles upon Demry after he falls and breaks his legs. And the short story actually ends like right at that same exact moment. So it kind of shows that
Okay.
journey to get there.
Mhm.
And yeah, so basically it's like he finally got his not his name back, but like what his family represented almost, that like the power, the money, the noble name, and kind of wanted it back for that like self satisfaction of like, ha, I'm actually better than you all, almost, like uh, I wasn't as worthless as maybe everyone thought,
Mhm.
sort of thing. And then he gets it, and you see that he kind of changes a little bit. And then has to lose it and goes right back to being the guy that we all know. um,
And maybe he's better off in the long run. Or
Oh.
don't tell me.
I, I don't. I'm not gonna spoil anything, but I would
Yeah.
agree with you based on we've seen how nobility fares in that city, and he probably is much better off. He got off easy. He got deposed in a very neutral way, and mostly that's avoid the fight basically from Skate's point of view, I think, and yeah, I had a thought and lost it.
Who was everybody's favorite character to read?
Edelbrock, my favorite.
Edelbrock for me too. Yeah.
I would have to say the same, but that doesn't take away from me from the others. But I did find that I kept wanting to see what would happen next. I mean, all of the characters are set up well. I think the need for revenge,
Yeah,
is a strong driver, for that character, and I felt he was relatable. But
everybody
then,
loves a vengeance story. They do.
yeah. But then I was pulling for Keldon. I always have to remember that name. I was pulling
Sorry.
for no.
Who no longer you've been released.
And I was pulling for Sarah Dahl. I am.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say the thing is that all of the characters, the actions they take do make sense. I was thinking how the big issue about Daenerys and how she
Oh God! Don't bring her up.
I know. No, but what I mean is the thing is the foreshadowing didn't make sense,
Right.
But in with these characters, what happens makes sense within the world because they're going back and adding those details, the foreshadowing and that kind of thing. It does make a difference. And so when we do lose a character or they make a particular choice, it makes sense within the world. And that's what makes it fun. That's, fun. Everyone has different levels of fun, I guess, but horrific and humorous at the same time.
Yeah, I did the same thing when I finished writing the draft for Buzzard's Bowl, which is book 2. I went back and added some details and some foreshadowing, and I don't know if I did it as well as the first book. I guess we'll find out because I did change editors for book 2. So now I have Sarah Chorn. So I'll be honest, I'm really nervous about book 2 because of the change in editors. Sarah is very well known, so I'm probably just being paranoid. But I'm just, nervous about the change.
It's one of those things. I think it gives you a place to challenge your nervousness. Everybody that I hear speak about the book 2 is nervous about something, John, if you know what I mean. So in this case, this gives you something specific to be nervous about. If it wasn't that, it would just be the whole book, maybe.
Yeah.
That's fair. Book 2 is different than book 1, the way I wrote it. So I wrote book 1 and I got it developmental edit. And holy crap, the problems that book had, because I wrote it with the idea that if I don't worry about distances on a map, if I don't worry about timelines, if I don't worry about any of this stuff, no one's going to really care. Well, didn't I luck out and get the editor who very much cares about that stuff? So she was like, is this all like making sense in the timeline? I'm like, I don't know. I didn't look. She's like, well, you really need to figure that out because some of this stuff, if I'm mapping it, just doesn't make sense. And I'm like, oh, well, crap. So then I had to go back. I had to come up with a timeline. So I came up with like the cycles and the seasons and how that worked.
Mhm.
I printed out the map to my book. I took a ruler. I drew every character's path on the map, and then I did the math to map it so I didn't have to actually change anything. So I figured out, okay, well, if this guy takes 6 days to get here to here, so I wrote down 6 days on that line, then I wrote down 2 weeks on this one,
Mm.
and then I just made it so that everything would fit in those distances in some way. I had to change a few things, obviously, but so I did that. I changed the timeline, so I had to go back and change so much. It was a pain in the ass. So when I wrote book 2, it's and it's still kind of a jumbled mess because each character has their own seasonal heading, and some of them end earlier than others. So it almost feels like you're jumping back and forth through seasons a little bit here and there.
Mhm.
But in book 2, I basically separated those into separate sections. So instead of like Edelbrock winter, I have winter, and then everyone's chapters are in that, and then the next section would be cycle 2 of winter, and then spring, and so on, because it made that easier. But I forgot where I was going with this. There was a point somewhere in there about the differences between the two books. Oh, sorry. I had to gather my thoughts. So another thing I changed is that I put in a lot more interludes in book 2,
Ah.
which I'm a little nervous on because I guess it depends on how much you like interludes and extra characters. But I really thought it expanded on the world a lot and showed you a lot of stuff that you wouldn't normally get to see, a lot of points of view. So there is a lot more interludes than in book 1. I think book 1 had 4, 5. I think it had 4 or 5. And book 2 has, I don't have an exact number, but at least 12, I'd say. I mean, it has
Okay.
quite a few of those. And then of course there's a new point of view character, and that's scary because people might not like her. So I guess we'll see. But I love her. So
It's interesting, but I was going to say, interesting to me with the interludes because the way you structured the start of this book was obviously the prologue chapter, the first chapter was a point of view character we're never seen again. So I actually thought, and then we went into the cycle of the 5 POVs. So by the time we hit the 6th chapter, I was kind of like, are the first couple of chapters here just like you described the interludes? I thought it would have been a really nice way to tell a story, of just to tell little sections of stories from the world to give you a flavor for the world.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, to kind of give you a feel for the griminess, the dirtiness of the language, and the way that it goes, and then you'll hit the POVs kind of afterwards. And it was only when they came back around and went, no, actually here are our 5 POVs as we go through. But I thought that was a really interesting idea. So the fact that you're using that for your interludes kind of is that idea, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's fair. Really, I really like the interludes because it allows me to kind of write some wild characters and do some crazy things. Honestly, if I was writing the Trials of Ashmount again, I think the 5 main characters would be a little bit more quirky, maybe. I don't know. I think you kind of see that in some of the interludes. Is that they have a bit more, I don't want to say characterization to them, but they have a bit more like weird things or quirks or habits or something. And I think that my next book I write that isn't part of the series will kind of read a little bit differently because when I wrote the first draft, I got to be honest, I did not really have a grip on characterization like I have it like now. And so a lot of the characters read a lot blander, and I did go back and fix them, but I don't think they're as strong as like if I had started when I figured that out, unfortunately. But it's okay. I can't complain.
That was your first book. Holy Christ.
Yeah.
Right. And I've heard many writers say that, that they would, do something differently now, but it's all part of a growth process. And I think just trust your instinct with the second book. If an editor makes a recommendation you agree with, then you're probably on the right track. If you don't, then
Well, I'll be honest, I'm a lot less nervous about book 2 now after I got it edited because I asked Sarah, I was like, you're the only person who's actually read both books. Because I didn't have time to have anyone read the first draft of Buzzard's Bowl before I got it to her, because the deadline of the edit kind of snuck up, and I was like, well, I only got a week. I'm not going to ask anyone to read this in a week. So here it is. And I was surprised to hear that she thought it was really well polished for that, and so that made me happy. But she said that she really liked Buzzard's Bowl way more than book 1, because she said I really came into my own in that book, I guess. And I wonder if part of that is, in book 1, I had a wonderful editor, but I do have to also confess there were a few changes she made that, like, really, I wish I had a little bit more willpower or something to say, no, I don't want to change that, because some of them were really important changes that I feel like they made sense. I understand why she said to make the changes, but they took away some of maybe the voice that I was going for in some things, and I wonder if that made a few things suffer. And I don't think that's a criticism of the editor, because I mean, it's hard. It's really up to the author whether or not you accept the change, and why you accept the change, and why you don't accept the change. And so I don't blame her. I just wish that I had thought about it and realized I can say no to some changes. And I think that I think it just would have been better a little bit. But so book 2, I think, has a lot more of my voice in it, if that makes sense. It's hard to explain what I'm trying to mean here, but I think I was just a lot more confident with book 2 as well, and I didn't have to deal with Keldon, so
no,
every POV was amazing in book 2 for me.
I get what you're saying, because I teach writing, and then I've read other folks' manuscripts and so on, and just always very careful to say, this is how I, as a reader, am interpreting this or understanding this, but it's still the writer's choice. And I don't know how it works between an actual editor and writer in that regard, but it
Well,
to
both
me,
editors I've had put like notes on Word.
Yeah, the writer has their internal instinct, and I think it's important to find that within oneself and adhere to that.
And actually, I haven't gone through that process again. The fact that it's come out and you have that kind of feeling, I wish you didn't, helps plan your future writing and your future dealings with your editors as well. Whereas if you'd kept it and maybe one of them didn't work out, you might have been the totally opposite, John, where you just kind of went, I've just got to do what the editor says all the time, So,
Yeah, kind of. Unfortunately, I listened like 99.9% of the time to every change because I thought I had to. I kind of realized afterwards I didn't have to do every change. And actually, I removed a whole interlude chapter from the Trials of Ashmount. I don't regret that. That was not a bad change, but it did show some stuff that I don't want to get into now because it's kind of a spoiler for book 2, but it did kind of give some answers to some hidden questions about kind of had like Durham in it.
Oh, I froze.
Uh-oh.
I just thought that was a dramatic pause.
Yeah,
It said Durham and then dramatic pause.
Oh yeah, so it focused on I'll tell you when the chapter happened. It was right before Ashmount is destroyed. It's right after Durham leaves the university, and
Mhm.
it's from the point of view of actually one of the people that blow themselves up.
Ah.
And so they have this interaction, and then they start to head off to the school basically, and then you go into Keldon's chapter where you see them approaching,
Mhm.
and I thought it was really cool, but the editor said like this is a little bit unnecessary, and I was like, okay, you're probably right, and so I focused on the content of that chapter in book 2 more, and so I don't regret taking it out, but it is interesting that there was a whole chapter removed that I don't know.
Yeah. Well, when Netflix makes the series, you can have them added.
Oh, it's
Oh boy,
HBO. Layla, like it'll not be Netflix. Yeah, damn.
I can't even imagine. The funny thing is, a lot of the scenes that I write in in that book, I guess a lot of the times when I'm writing, I often think of them as like TV set show pieces
Yeah.
almost, and
Mhm.
I had this very strong visual of Ashmount, and I have this very strong visual of Buzzard's Bowl, and I'm like, oh man, those would be so cool in like a TV show or something, but
Mhm.
uh, I'm not that famous. Maybe one day.
Maybe one day indeed.
Don't forget about us when you are.
How could I?
Yeah.
I was going to say House of the Dragon season 3 or 4 will probably be going about then.
Yeah.
To the spoilers.
That would be, I mean, honestly, if I ever got big enough where I got like a broken binding edition, I'd feel like, oh my god, I made it. I can't even imagine what I think if I got a TV show.
Yeah.
That'd be nuts. I mean, honestly, the dream for me is just I just want to earn enough money so that I don't have to worry about getting another job, so I can just keep writing. That would be my dream. That's a ways off, but at the moment, I have enough money. My situation is fine. I can just write and keep publishing. And basically, what I'm going to do is get my first series out, see how it does. So I'll have 4 books in the series, and I also plan on releasing a short story anthology early next year. So
Hmm.
I'll have 5 books out. And if I mean, I can't imagine things don't pick up, but I'm for 1 book, I think I'm doing okay. So if it continues to escalate, uh, then I I will have made it as an author, which is wild to
Yeah.
think. And that's really the goal of mine. I have a lot of ideas for books, so I'd
Cool.
like to write them all.
Yeah. Keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When can we expect updates for book 2?
So book 2, I think I'm 240 pages edited out of 600. The page count is don't assume the book is going to be 600 pages. This page count is including all the changes. So if you delete something, it still shows the deleted amount in the
Oh.
story. So
Track
I
changes.
don't think it's actually 600 pages. Yeah, the tracking changes. And I think it's right about 150,000 words right now. So it's 10,000 words longer than Trials of Ashmount at the moment. Uh, I don't know how much longer it's going to get. We'll see. So I got to finish editing it. So probably not going to get to that until January, mid-January.
Mhm.
So I want to finish editing that. As soon as I have that finished editing, I'm going to send that off to get it proofread and have some people read it maybe before I think about releasing it. I want to write 4 more short stories for that anthology. And the goal is to have the short story out first, the collection out first, because it has some character introductions for book 2.
Hmm.
And I think book 2 would be a lot more interesting if you had the introductions. I really almost put those introductions in the book, but I just feel like it'd be weird to put like the new POV, her name is Ashen. And if I put Ashen's origin story, which is a short story I wrote a while back, just randomly, I think it's like 8,500 words, and it takes place. I think it's a year before book 2. I just feel like that'd be out of place. It'd be a really long opening, and like for a character that no one cares about, I just think that would not be a great idea. So I figured I'll just throw that in the short story collection
Nice.
because it's not immediately relevant. I think it's super useful if you are one of those people that wants to know everything,
Mhm.
because they do reference like back when that happened a little bit. And then there's also another character background for someone called the Bloody Duchess, and she is also a really cool character. So yeah, I do want that out before book 2 comes out. So that's almost fully written. Book 2 is almost fully edited. I'm still waiting on the cover art for book 2. That's the big part. Is I need the cover art. The artist keeps telling me when I message him, I'm like, hey, update. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna start your cover art next week. Well, next week comes around, I don't hear from him, so I wait another week or 2. How's it going? Gonna get to it. I got delayed. I'll be on it next week. Like, okay, a couple more weeks go by. Are you starting it? Almost there. So
Is
Same
it the
cover artist, John.
what's that?
Same cover artist.
Yes, the
Dusan.
Dusan Markovic, I think is his name.
Mhm.
I'm probably butchering it because I can't say foreign names very well. But yes, the cover art of the Trials of Ashmount was Ashmount. The cover art of Buzzard's Bowl is going to be Buzzard's Bowl, and I can't wait.
Nice.
I'm hoping it comes out the way I want it to. I mean the art for Ashmount, so you can see here. It's way different than I actually wanted it to be, but I really like it. So originally, I actually wanted this building and this whole area to be like more back, a little bit more zoomed out, and I wanted people to kind of be like walking down this trail and seeing it. But when he got done with it, this is what I got. Fucking love it.
Yeah.
To scale, it's not necessarily to scale because there's a lot more like greenery and space, but honestly, that's fine with me. I think that I love art of my work. I actually got someone drew Demry for me like before the book even came out, which was really cool. Um, I I have it. I'll repost it on Twitter later today so that it's
That'll
recent.
be cool.
It's really cool. It looks nothing like a Demry that I wrote in my head, but that's how she like saw him.
This is
But I'm
old
like-
Emery, is it?
Yeah, she made him a lot more handsome than I was thinking. What if I can pull it up and show it? I don't know if it'll show up the screen to screen thing here, but I can try, and if I can find it here, there it is. I don't know if this is gonna show up. Let me zoom in. Yep, that's not gonna show up.
Yeah.
That was too much of a hope.
Well, we can look out for it later, though. That's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, I'll post it after we're done here, and so that is pretty cool. I wanted to draw the other ones. That would be sweet, but I don't know if she has the time or what. I should ask her because it would be really cool. But yeah, he's definitely more handsome than I thought. I in my head he's a lot like uglier, but you know, we all see every character differently. It doesn't matter how, even if you describe them as handsome or ugly, you get a picture and you might not, you know, see them that way, which is one of the great things about reading, I think.
Oh, I think so too.
Yeah, for sure.
I love the fan art.
Me too. So if people want to do fan art,
I've only one other question, and that was the riddle.
oh god, the riddle.
Did it? Well, one. When I was reading it, I thought this must have been such a pain in the arse to write. But did anybody else get the answer? I got home. Home was the answer that I got before he said it, which ironically is the wrong answer. But you know.
Oh man, I'm not good at writing that type of shit, and I was like, I bet 100% I get a review one day that has an answer that fits, and that's fine. That's okay. I'm not a riddle genius, and when I wrote it, actually, the true story is I wrote the answer. What was it? Volcano, right?
Volcano, yeah, yeah.
So I wrote the answer, and I posted that in a writing group, that riddle. I was like, does anyone know what the answer to this is? So I think I also posted the answer. I said I wrote volcano, but I want to make sure. And someone actually said home, and I was like,
Yeah.
fuck, there's another answer. So that's why in the book he answers the wrong answer, but then they're like, well, that actually fits. So don't kill him. He's still right.
That's a cool story.
Yeah.
See, I was seeing sinister things and everything there. So I thought, well, maybe all the riddles had more than one answer, but they just kind of picked who they would, kick out and who they wouldn't.
See, that's an awesome interpretation that wasn't intended. That makes a lot of sense and totally fits, and I am totally cool with that. And so, thanks for saying that, because now all the answers that may or may not fit, now you know why they don't, or they do, but it doesn't matter because Layla got it right. It's exactly like something they would do, though.
Yeah.
No, it is.
Yeah.
I mean, as soon as we see how the trial is going, you start to understand that these are not good people. So any other trial that any of them come up against, it seemed like it would be subjective to me
Mhm.
because they really don't care who lives or dies.
Yeah.
I have a question for you guys, because we didn't really touch on them. How did you like or not like the Dukes and the Duchess scenes? So you had Arena, Velturo, the King. I'm forgetting my own names right now. There are a few other people.
Vaccaro. Vaccaro was that one of the?
I can't remember.
Oh, he's one of the generals. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
But Harlem. Yeah, Harlem Macaro. Yeah, that was one of them. I don't remember all of them because I
So
haven't thought
they
about
they
this.
were mostly the interlude scenes, weren't they, John? If I'm picking those up.
Yeah, they were the interlude. So there was Royal was interlude 1.
Yes, Royal. Yes, indeed.
Then there was I think there was 2 Dukes and the Duchess were 3 other interlude scenes. And then there was one other interlude scene, I think. I can't remember who it was of, but that person doesn't matter. Anyway, what I'm trying to get at is the scene, the politicians that are discussing the wars with the king and stuff. They are a stronger part of book 2. And Ashen's storyline kind of goes with that quite a bit more. So you see more of those characters. Some people really like them, others not so much. So I guess it depends on how you feel about them. But they are in book 2 a bit more. They were some of my favorite scenes to write, but you got the really messy eater. I love that.
Yeah.
I took them as secondary characters to our main point of view characters, but they gave us a sense of what the elite were like, and how, especially with Edelbrock, it was a contrast to what he, maybe contrast isn't the right word. They illustrated what Edelbrock was and wanted to be versus, the experiences he was about to have. So I didn't really see them as, I didn't know them as well because they were secondary characters. So if you're now going to develop them into more active characters, then that would make perfect sense.
Yeah, they're going to be more in book 2. I think I guess I didn't really. Well, I probably did, and I forgot. But I was gonna say, I guess I didn't really make that connection between how like Edelbrock actually wants to be like those people. I don't know why. I just didn't make that connection between, because everything when I were writing it, or at least when I was writing it, was so separate that those dukes, like I did with Skade, like, and he was the nobleman, but I almost didn't even realize with the dukes. But you're right. That's exactly like what he would want to be, and with so they're in a. I just lost my train of thought. I'm sorry, guys. I'm tired.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're really fun to write. That's all I have to say about them.
Yeah.
I think from my point of view, I think when the interludes happened, I was sort of resentful at the time when you got, oh god, I've got an interlude, because we're in the middle of the story. But actually, by the time you get halfway through the chapter, you're like, okay, these are quite well written and interesting. And actually, by the time Royal comes back around by the end of the book, like I think Royal's a fantastic character. You know, he's a really interesting character.
I love Royal.
Yeah.
So I think almost every single interlude in book 2 is a character that was in book 1.
Oh, right, okay.
I think there's a couple new characters. I can think of like 2 or 3 interludes at least that are new characters, but they have side characters in their interludes that you know too. So it's not like completely new stuff. There might be one chapter that's like completely new characters, but for the most part, every single interlude you'll be like, oh, I know who that character is. Oh, I remember that character. Or it'll be like, who's this character? And then you see where they are, and you're like, oh my god, we're here with this character. Okay, cool. So I do know what you mean about book 1. It's like, who the hell is this character, and why are we here? And it's not really answered until later with other stuff. Actually, fun fact: Royal's interlude was the first interlude I wrote, and it was because I almost abandoned writing the book. I got to the point where Royal's interlude is, and I said, I'm so sick of writing this book. And I think I was on a Keldon chapter. I said, okay, I can't do this anymore. I'm done writing this book. And instead of writing Keldon's chapter, I just started writing. And Royal came up, and I just wrote Royal's chapter. And I was like, wow, that was fun.
We're back, yeah.
Really like that. And then I got through it, and eventually Royal came into like the book later, and yeah, I was super close to not finishing that book, because I got to a point where I was just like, oh man, I'm done with this book. I kind of burned out. I'm glad I didn't do that.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't have a book out there. But yeah, Royal was a happy accident, because I just was bored, really bored one day, just not feeling like it. But I wanted to write, so I just started writing, and that's the scene that came out of it. Yeah. So then I added some more interludes, because I noticed that the interludes made it so I held my interest more. And I think that's why there's more in Buzzard's Bowl, because it's like it was a lot easier to stay interested. Not that I wasn't interested, but like it's the change of character, I think, which is crazy to say because I have 5 POVs. But
yeah, it's interesting that some of the there's a lot of like incidental minor characters that are there for a page and a half, but you're like, oh, they're cool. You know, you have an attachment to them, like the old vulture guy. You know, you're like, oh yeah, he's cool. And then even the authoritarian Gerfalcon leader who stays in the city, she's kind of cool, and you know.
I tried to. Oops, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna quickly say that I tried for the most part to give each, even little character, some like quirk or some thing that was cool or something to make them kind of, even if they're not a major character, something that was like, oh wow, that's cool. Yeah. And then, you know, if they do make a resurgence, like it's kind of cool. You know, they're interesting.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, you know, I always notice more things on reread. I think we've talked about that in various ways. And so as I read through, you know, my first read through, I'm looking at every character thinking, okay, which one is going to pop up again,
Mm.
you know? And so I saw the POV characters as like the main, and I'm looking for how are the secondary characters either supporting or maybe they're going to become obstacles for our POV characters. So that's kind of my first read through. So I don't know how others do. It's always the reread where, for me, it starts to sink in as
Yeah.
to who is who. So I look forward to book 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Book 2 has just a little tease, a lot more meetups. So
Nice.
there's like, you know how each character has their own chapter.
Mhm.
Book 2 has quite a few like joint chapters, which is really interesting.
Oh, good.
That is
So
cool.
I think that'll be, and it's going to, book 3 is going to even have more of those, I think.
Hmm.
We'll see. Everything's kind of closing in.
Awesome.
Nice. Yeah. Looking forward
Good
to it.
work.
Yeah. So thanks for staying up with us, John. I know you're tired. So
Yeah, I got up early, unfortunately.
well, cool. So if someone wants to get in touch with you and talk about your book, where's the best place to find you?
I'm most active on Twitter at a grim bastard.
Nice.
It's the best place to find me.
Awesome. And Layla, where's the best place to find you and your new journal?
Ballady Magazine on Twitter and YouTube. Got some interviews lined up. Got some things happening. So we'll see how things go.
Nice.
Excellent.
And Chris?
When I make that video, it'll be up my YouTube channel, which is just my name, and on Twitter at 7:00 Shadow.
Nice. Awesome. Thanks again, John. We know, you're lacking sleep and have books to write, so we appreciate you
Yeah.
coming by to hang out with
Oh,
us.
thanks for having me. I love coming on here and talking shit.
Yeah. Yeah. It's our specialty. So thanks everyone for hanging out with us in the chat and coming by to talk about book 1. Looking forward to book 2. Cool. Thanks everybody.
Take care.